I think we're good to start. Okay, so back in February, specifically on Valentine's Day, I was sitting exactly where I sit now, looking out this very window, which you can't see to my right. And I was also taking part in a little songwriting circle that day. I think Kath was part of that, maybe nobody else that's here tonight. And we were tasked with writing a song that was somehow Valentine's Day themed. But February this year was a bit weird. As you probably remember, we were right in the middle of what for me was the worst of the lockdowns and the kind of deepest trough of the COVID nightmare. And I was thinking about lovers that were separated by lockdown, and so I wrote this song about postponement of Valentine's Day until October. And I randomly chose October because it seemed at that point feasible that by October life would be a little bit more normal. And then, wouldn't you know, it turns out that in October I'd be playing a gig, hopefully, in a room full of friends. And actually, although this song sounds like it's about lovers, it's really not. It's mostly about missing your friends. So I'm going to sing this one for you now. It's called, fittingly enough, October Valentine. This October we'll be dancing, cheek by cheek, line by line. This October we'll be touching, your hand holding mine. This October I will feel your soft breath on my face. No distance between us, we'll hold each other safe. Come the autumn, come the fall, will you be my Valentine? Not by text and not by call, in flesh and blood, we'll break the bread, we'll drink communion wine. Come this October time. This October we'll be kissing, your lips searching mine. This October we'll be making love, we'll be making up for lost time. Come the autumn, come the fall, won't you be my Valentine? Not two faces trapped on screens, in flesh and blood, we'll break the bread, we'll drink communion wine. Come this October time. I know this distancing, it's killing you. Behind the veil, the air is hard to breathe. But hold on, you know that I'll be there for you. Reunion is all the hope we need. We need. Come the autumn, come the fall, will you be my Valentine? Not two faces trapped on screens, in flesh and blood, we'll break the bread, we'll drink communion wine. Come this October time. Come the autumn, come the fall, will you be my Valentine? Not by text and not by call, in flesh and blood we break the bread, we drink communion wine. Come this October time, come this October time, come this October time. There you go, that's a whole song. Okay. Thank you for your visual clapping, that's very encouraging. Okay, so that was a solo write, but a solo write in the context of a circle, and most of my songwriting has been collaborative in one context or another over the last few years. So this one began in an attempted and incomplete co-write with Emma, who's here tonight, Emma Gale. And we were thinking about writing a song based on this picture behind me, which you can't quite see properly unless I do that, which is a beautiful picture painted by a young person in secure care in Scotland that I got at an exhibition a few years ago. And we decided to use it as a stimulus for writing, and it got us talking about prisons and confinement, but also about the ocean and about all sorts of things nautical. And we did started doing a little bit of research in the process of that co-write. And I came across two stories, one kind of supplied by Emma, and one that I found myself. Well, Emma's got a family connection with Portland in Dorset, and there's a prison there, which I was aware of. So we looked up the history of the prison, and in that case, the prison in Portland was built when they brought in convict labour to make a harbour, to make it safer for ships to bring things to the island. And I thought that was a kind of potent idea, that you would use people thought to be dangerous to make safety, and literally to make safety by quarrying stone and bringing it to make a harbour wall. And then I dug a little bit further into history, and I found the story of a ship called the George III, which was a prison transportation ship taking people to Tasmania. And I'll just say it didn't end well. So I put those two stories together in reverse historical order and made a fictional song written from the perspective of somebody who is on that ship. So, here we go. On Portland Isle, they made us work 2 winters waiting for the ship, and this is what they promised us: a way to climb out of the pit. If we cut the stone from rock, if we laboured hard and true, we could buy our freedom back in the new world, far beyond the blue. On Portland Isle, we cut the stone to make their harbour safe and strong. We worked until we broke our bones, where lash and labour settled wrong. In blisters and in bloodied skin, we overpaid the price of sin, all to buy our freedom back in the new world, far beyond the blue. A shelter, a harbour, a haven, a home. We laboured for hope to make safety from stone. The perfect redemption, the purchase of blood. Over the ocean we sailed for rebirth. In 1834, from Woolwich Docks did we depart, more than 200 convict souls, more than 100 crew and guards, and 14 died along the way, and many more did curse their lives, until we saw Van Diemen's Land, 12th of March, 1835. But the master's haste, it cost us dear. We foundered in the heavy seas, and while the innocents were saved, the prisoners were left beneath. For we lay locked down in the hold, and there 100 men did drown. Still in chains they met their fate, no mercy for the ill-renowned. No shelter, no harbour, no haven, no home. We laboured for naught, spilling blood on the stones. The promise is broken in worlds old and new, lost in the ocean, condemned to no shelter, no harbour, no haven, no home. We laboured for naught, spilling blood on the stones. The promise is broken in worlds old and new, lost in the ocean, condemned to the blue. Okay. So, there's another prison connection. I'm afraid this is going to be a bit of a recurring theme. One of the first co-writes I ever did was with my friend Alison, Yuri, who's here tonight in the background. And we did it in the context of a project that we're involved with. Hello, Alison. A project that we're involved with called Vox Liminis, and I think it was 2015 maybe, was the first time in the context of that project that I went into a prison to write songs with people inside. And it was part of a huge group of people. We had 3 or 4 musicians, including Finlay Napier, Louis Abbott, Donna Machocha, some people that you might know. And we were working with about 8 people in prison and also 3 or 4 PhD students, all to co-write songs themed around re-entry, so kind of coming home after. And we were, I should say, doing this in the context of Scotland's only open prison in a place called Castle Huntly, which is where long-term prisoners are prepared for release. So I was in that workshop, given that prompt, and trying to think of an experience of my own that involved going away from home and going back home. And weirdly, and don't ask me why, the experience that came into my mind is one from my childhood, which needs a bit of explanation. So I had a good friend, I still have the same friend, John, and when we were little boys together in our sort of small town in the west of Scotland, we used to get exercised by how unfair life was, particularly in our families. We both had elder siblings and sometimes felt that they mistreated us. And so we would complain to our parents and they would dismiss our complaints. And then we would say, that's it, we're done with you, we're leaving, we're running away. At which point our mums packed a bag for us, gave us sandwiches and everything that we needed to run away. And we did. and it became a bit of a recurring theme, and it was known as the Runaway for a Day scheme, which was obviously a way for our parents to get us out of their hair, but it was also, it allowed us to lose our feelings of anger and frustration and develop a sense of how much we were missing home. Sometimes it didn't take more than about 10 minutes for all of that to happen. So this song reflects on those childhood experiences, and it was co-written with Alison. The words were from me and from that experience, and Alison did what she does very well, which was edit my worst impulses and improve things that I come up with. So I should say, actually, we've co-written a few things, and we have a kind of band name in that project called the Wayward Puritans, and there's a few things on Bandcamp from this. It's called Johnny Blues Well, which is one of the places that we ran away to, and Johnny Blues Well is called that because Johnny was a guy who went between the small village of Neilston and the town of Barrhead, where I grew up, and he worked in Neilston in one of the cloth factories, dyeing cloth. So he went to the well on the way home to get rid of the blue from his skin before he went home. There's a couple of words that need explanation here because there's some Scottishisms in here. So a clegg, does anyone know what a clegg is? A clegg is a horsefly, so a nasty biting insect. We call them cleggs in Scotland. And when we talk about cheese pieces in this song, we don't mean pieces of cheese, we mean cheese sandwiches. The pieces is another Scottish expression. So here we go. I think everything else will make sense. The gate latch metal slaps behind us. Creosote air, the wind in our hair, it's blowing. Carefully packed, our rage is intact. We are never going back. The long hill heat spills on tarmac. Burnt feet, sweat beads, souls aching. Come on now, John, the job's nearly done, and we are never going back. The chocolate melt rung bells of summer. The plastic cheese pieces ripen sour. The Tupperware smells at Johnny Blues Well, and we are never going back. Richard, could you mute your microphone, please?
Yeah.
Wings were 6 stars inside me. The tickled neck, a black plague plugging me. It's drawing my blood, oh Jesus, this sucks. Come on, John, I think I'm going back home. Come on, John, I think I'm going back home. Come on, John, I think I'm going home. A tragic tale, absolutely tragic. But I suppose our mums were pleased to see us after all. Now I realize already as I play through these songs that there's quite a lot of slow down, wistful music here, and maybe not enough that's breaking up the rhythm. But we're going to try and go even deeper before we rise again. So rivers and our relationships with them is the theme of the next song. And for me, those relationships changed as a result of lockdown. When I spent a lot of time walking by the River Kelvin, and in the context of another songwriting workshop, this time the Glasgow Songwriting Workshop, where I met a few of you, Emily Barker encouraged us to write a song about a body of water that meant something to us. And it got me thinking about what the Kelvin meant to me. But then I think also at her suggestion, I flipped the perspective and wrote this from the position of the river. So this is the river talking to me about how we relate. You won't recall where we first met. I passed you on the western steps. The indifference of youth, perhaps you didn't notice me. Our paths have crossed 1,000 times. The tributaries intertwined. The busyness of life, perhaps you couldn't seize. But when the world slowed, I still flowed. You found me when my need was strong. When the doors closed, I still flowed. Then finally you heard my song. You walked beside me every day. I whispered all your woes away. Lost in froth and foam and drowned in horseback brown. You saw me fall in grey and gold. Watched the life around me grow. Baptized, I drew you so far down and turned you round. So when the world spins and time thins, will you find me when my need is strong? When clocks turn and lights burn, still listen to the water song. Will you still hear me? Will you still hear? When the world slowed, I still flowed. You found me when the need was strong. But when the world spins, when time thins, still listen to the water song. When weary feet can walk no more, I'll carry you from bridge to shore. In the ocean we begin again, times without end. The old river, eh? Right. Okay, we do have a slight change of tone. Maybe more sonic than lyrical, so Another thing that happened in lockdown, which was sort of significant for me, is that I passed time, or I used time differently. In particular, I wanted to find projects that could occupy my mind and my hands. And I got started quite early in the first lockdown by trying to refurbish a couple of chairs from the university that I had secretly taken home. So they're technically stolen chairs, but you know, you don't have to tell anybody. And they're chairs from the 1950s or 60s, and they'd already kind of cracked. The sort of faux leather had cracked, and the horsehair was kind of falling out in places through the hessian that I had worn. So I ripped everything off them, and I got, in one chair, I removed more than 400 tacks individually. And I thought, what an amazing thing it must have been for a person to put the 400 tacks into this chair. And it got me thinking about the person. And then, wouldn't you know, as I took the last bit of cover off, there was a little cartoon, scored out cartoon, and the chair had been signed by Stanley Brown on the 5th of October 1962. I assume he was an apprentice, and that the foreman or the master found him with the cartoon and insisted that he score it out. But they left a name and they left a date. And of course, I looked up the date, and on the 5th of October 1962, two profoundly important cultural events took place. One was that the Beatles released Love Me Do, which in itself would be enough, but also on that day, Dr. No premiered in the cinema. So I decided to write a song imagining what was going on for Stanley on the day that he wrote his name on that chair, to lie undiscovered for all that time. Just let me double check that this baritone guitar is in fact ready to be played. One more sip of the old Guinness. Starting to wish that wasn't 0%, but... You wrote the date in pencil, 5th October 62. Stanley Brown, you signed it the day we first heard Love Me Do. Worked the wood with plane and chisel, fashioned every piece to fit. Hessian wrapped the horsehair, smoothed the felt to soften it. Held each tack and swung the hammer, fixed the cover into place. Even though your name lies hidden, what you made still carries weight. When your work was done that evening, 5th October 62, you asked the new girl to the salon. She agreed to go with you. When the spy kissed Honey Rider, your arm slid round her chair, and before the house lights brightened, the path had changed for you and her. Now the rest is history. You set the course, you ran the race. Even though your names lie hidden, love you made still carries weight. The old world was collapsing in October 62. The long shadow of the Second War was hanging over all of you. You held your breath, you held each other, while cold warriors diced with death. But the only bombs exploding were the myths you laid to rest. So I'm still sitting here in that chair you made, as I try to slow this furious pace. Even though your name lies hidden, know your work still carries weight. Even though your names lie hidden, know your love still carries weight. Even though your name lies hidden, know your love still carries weight. Might reconsider some of those high notes, I think, but you know, you can feedback on that in the Zoom chat or in the proper chat later. Right, what's happening next? I think it's time for a... Oh, that's Trudy's notes. That's looking very intimidating. Right, 2 songs now that are short and sweet, but with bitter barbs in them. And the first of these is a co-write with Sarah, who's here. And these 2 are very new songs from the Bird on a Wire course that Sarah and Stephen and Kath and a few others have all been taking part in over the last few Tuesday nights. And we had one task which was to write lyrics in common metre, like Mary had a little lamb, his fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. And we were to keep the last line the same, and then just write 3 verses, and then pass it on to somebody to put to music, including with the elaboration of more words if we wanted, and the addition of choruses and so on. So we were also given the theme of ink. And Sarah wrote these gorgeous words. 3 of the verses are pretty much, well, hardly changed from what Sarah originally wrote. And I don't think it needs any explanation. It's just so beautifully written, it's kind of obvious. The one thing I would say is, listen carefully at the end. Inside my coat, your letter hides. It's like a secret sin, whose words caress in blue-black waves that seep into my skin. In fading light, I search your words for clues concealed within. The more I read, the more they seem to seep into my skin, to seep into my skin, to seep into my skin. So sweet beneath the surface it begins. Time bleeds slow, you're far from me, my patience wearing thin. So I will hold this letter close to seep into my skin, to seep into my skin, to seep into my sweet beneath the surface it begins. Now you're here in flesh and blood, the paper cuts begin. My ink-stained love, run back to me to seep into my skin. There you go. Beautiful words by Sarah Jane Rimmer. Right, so the next song is a kind of sequel to that song with its own twist. I think this is also, I played this to somebody recently and they said, this is your only punk song. And I do have a plan, actually. Let's practice this plan. So again, this was there was a specific structure we were given here, which is we had to write a 3-chord song or less, no more than 3 chords. We had to write using 30 words. We could use the same words as many times as we wanted, but we couldn't use more than 30 different words. And the song had to last no more than 2 minutes. And in the version of this that I recorded, it lasts 1 minute and 52 seconds, which is quite short for a gig. So I have a plan for how to spread this song out and let it breathe, and that is to get the audience to write verses. And I'm going to ask you to write a verse right now. But the nice thing is there's so much repetition. Yes, Trudy, you'll have this done in no time. There's so much repetition in this song that you only need one line to achieve the effect of a verse. So I shall explain by playing you as a little prequel how the first verse goes. I'm very proud of this. See this? This is a little sponge which is stuck in my guitar to muffle the sound of the strings and create a particular sonic effect that I quite like. You don't read my letters anymore. You don't read my letters anymore. Ink stains fade to grey and paper blows away. You don't read my letters anymore. There you go. So all I need is a line from you which has something to do with love letters that are no longer being read, and it just needs to be within the sort of syllabic structure of you don't read my letters anymore. You don't read my letters anymore. 9 syllables. So stick them in the chat and I'll add 1 or 2 of them to the song. That should be easy. Live. I'm just going to start in the hope that somebody comes up with something. I need to make sure, though, that my chat box is big enough to let me get these. I'd like to lick your face, not this stamp. I'll just see if that works. I'd like to lick your face and not this stamp. Why not? Yeah, it works. Thanks, Stephen. 40 years unopened, all I wrote. That's much more poetic. Thank you, Melissa. It's good that somebody here is representing the classier side of America. I can't promise I'll get to all of these. You don't read my letters anymore. You don't read my letters anymore. Ink stains fade to grey and paper blows away. You don't read my letters anymore. Paper cuts surprise and then they sting. Paper cuts surprise and then they sting. Ink stains fade to grey and paper blows away. Paper cuts surprise and then they sting. My best pencil has fallen on the floor. My best pencil has fallen on the floor. Ink stains fade to grey and paper blows away. My best pencil has fallen on the floor. Feel free to harmonise, by the way. The postie can't even get them through the door. That's a Scottish version. The postie can't even get them through the door. Ink stains fade to grey and paper blows away. The postie can't even get them through the door. Okay, one more. 40 years unopened, all I wrote. 40 years unopened, all I wrote. Ink stains fade to grey and paper blows away. 40 years unopened, all I wrote. I think I left a trace beneath your skin. I think I left a trace beneath your skin. Ink stains fade to grey and paper blows away. I think I left a trace between your paper cuts surprise. That didn't work. I think I left a trace beneath your paper cuts surprise, and then it stings that you don't read me anymore. Well, it kind of worked. Maybe needs a little more practice. Okay. Nearly there, folks. So I've just got 2 more to go. Let me switch back to the right guitars. There's a lovely story for the next one. Kind of sad, but also, I think, a little bit beautiful. So this might tug at your heartstrings. The good news is if I do this now, I won't have to do much of it before the last song, because I've cunningly planned it so that these 2 songs with the same capo arrangements are back to back. So this one was written a couple of months ago. My mum passed away in January, and sorry, I'm clearing the wrong box. And that was not unexpected, but obviously very sad. And my dad survives. He's 89, and he's as fit as a fiddle. And my dad is a lover of the Scottish Highlands and camper vans. He's had camper vans since the 1970s when he built his own in the street outside our house, which was a great cause of excitement in the neighbourhood, as you can imagine. And he hadn't been able to go away in his van, his beloved van, for a while because Mum had been sick. So when he went away, he went for it. Although he's quite elderly and was slightly nervous, he went as far as the Western Isles to the beautiful island of North Uist, which is one of his favourite places in the world. However, there was an element of misadventure in his trip, which involved some whiskey and a fall in the van, and then some kind of bloodbath. And he ended up in the Isle of Barra and South Uist Hospital. I spoke to him on the phone, and he said it was the best equipped hospital he'd ever seen, and that the nurses were extremely attractive. So I don't think he was suffering too much, but he wasn't fit to drive the van home from the Outer Hebrides, and I couldn't get there for that there's only certain ways you can travel there, and everything was fully booked. So we arranged for his van to be put on the boat, and I went up on a train to meet him in Oban, which is where the boats come in the West Islands, and to drive him home. So I went up on the train, and while I was waiting for my dad to arrive, I just overheard this snippet of conversation between two ferrymen who worked the boats from Oban out to the islands, and they were talking about their retirement. Sorry, if you can hear loud shouting in the background, you probably can't, but if you can, I made the mistake of buying my son the latest version of FIFA on the PlayStation, and when that happens, all bets are off as to having a quiet evening in your house. And his bedroom's below this room, so he's probably shouting and swearing in frustration at how badly he's doing at FIFA. But anyway, to get back to the story, I'd stopped waffling. I was really just taken by these two ferrymen, and what they were talking about was their upcoming retirement. And I thought, God, it must be an amazing thing to spend your whole working life on boats and then not to be on boats. Like, how completely unsettling a thing that would be. So I wrote a song in tribute to the ferrymen of the Western Isles. The rain falls straight, not like the ocean spray. The breeze still bites, but saltless blows away. The sun still shines, but only from the sky. Casts no rainbows here through sea mists to my eyes. The gulls don't chase, no selkies come my way. I'm run aground from sea to shore, displaced. They made me leave my love, they made her sail away. Our time was done, they said, so lost on land I wait. It feels so strange to stand on solid ground without the swell and sway, like a babe torn from a cradle. I just cannot rest this way. I miss the ocean's ebb and flow as she carried me away. I'm so weary of this harbor, I miss my love each day. I worked the lines, Oban to Castle Bay. Lord of the Isles, she never missed a day. Star of the fleet, pride of the Hebrides. I know that boat, the way she knows the sea. It feels so strange to stand on solid earth without the swell and sway, like a babe torn from a cradle. I just cannot rest this way. I miss the ocean's ebb and flow as she carried me away. I'm so weary of this harbour, I miss my love each day. My tears fall straight, not like the ocean spray. The breeze still bites, but salt gets blown away. Yes. So, the poor ferryman, I mean, obviously he can get a boat of his own, I imagine, and just go out if he wants, but then it wouldn't be a song, so... Okay, we've reached the end, and you know what that means. Yeah, there's only one to go. How am I doing for time? Oh, well, I'm not bad. I'm just a little bit over time, which indicates that I have talked a tiny bit too much, but I won't introduce the last song because you probably all know a bit about it from one context or another, and anyway, it kind of speaks for itself. Have you ever met someone and felt the hectic stirring in your blood? It's hard to tell a pulse of madness from the embryo of love. I still see the scene like yesterday, a turquoise flash among the winter coats. Then later in the library, you smile like spring inviting seeds to grow. That's how it goes. Sometimes the body knows before the mind. I got lost up on the hills, had to climb so I could find my way. You did your own traveling, on a sticky floor you danced the blues away. Then in a borrowed car on borrowed time, a turning cheek sparked a question mark. The answer might be laugh or cry, the letters helped us both unfold the map. That's how it goes. Sometimes the body knows before the mind. Blood still stirs within these veins. The rush of love still cold. Your name on an over-patterned carpet, laughed out loud, and then we took to flight. Magic intermingling, in indigo we soared into the night. That's how it goes. Sometimes the body knows before we lose our minds. The blood, it still stirs within these veins.